Once upon a very quiet evening, in a kingdom where the wind tiptoed and the stars listened, there lived a fairy tale princess named Marigold. She had hair the color of warm honey and eyes like the gentlest part of the sky just before bed, soft, silvery blue. Marigold was known across the valleys and hills for her kindness, and for something else, too. She loved bedtime. While other princesses danced at balls and rode white ponies through rose gardens, Princess Marigold's favorite time was when the world grew hush-hush and everybody practiced the art of going slow. In the castle, beside a round window that looked out on the friendly moon, Marigold kept a quilt. It was not an ordinary quilt. It was a moonlit quilt, stitched by her grandmother with threads that had glimmered in starlight. Each patch held a story, and each story held a lesson, and each lesson felt like a lullaby. When the quilt settled over her, even the crickets sang a little softer. The queen and king adored their daughter, but they sometimes worried that she was too gentle for a world that could be busy and bustling. "Are you sure you don't want to learn the trumpet?" asked the king with a kind smile. "It's very energetic." "I like the harp better," Marigold answered, fingers floating over invisible strings. "It sounds like a whisper that learned how to sing." The queen brushed Marigold's hair. "Are you sure you don't want a grand adventure?" she asked. "I have one every night," Marigold said. "I travel across a sea of pillows. I visit the quiet places where dreams are planted like seeds." The king and queen laughed. They loved that their daughter's heart held a whole sky inside. On the evening our story begins, a soft silver bowl of a moon rose, bright and calm. The kingdom's bedtime bells chimed once, then again, each ring a little slower, as if even bells understood the rule of night, slow and soft and safe. "Tonight," said the queen, leaning in to kiss Marigold's forehead, "I think the Moonlit Quilt has a new patch for you. You'll know it when you find it." "How will I find it?" asked Marigold, drawing the quilt to her chin. "By listening," said the queen. "Listening deeply is a lantern that never runs out of light." "Listen," echoed Marigold. She liked the shape of the word, round and kind. The nursemaids doused the lanterns. The castle yawed a gentle wooden yawn, and the night patted in on quiet paws. Marigold lay still, so still that the room began to notice her stillness and joined her. Curtains resting, chairs content, the harp asleep beside the wall. She placed one hand over her heart and felt it knock, knock, knock. A tiny visitor reminding her she was never alone. Then she listened. At first, she heard the usual bedtime orchestra. The owls were counting stars. The river swished like a paintbrush. And far away, a dog was telling a last soft story to the moon. But then, beneath those gentle sounds, Marigold heard something else, something thin and trembly, like a thread tugged very carefully. It was the sound of someone not yet ready for sleep. "Whoever you are," whispered Marigold, "I'm listening." The sound pinged again, a whisper of worry. Marigold slipped from bed and wrapped herself in the moonlit quilt. It draped around her like a friendly cloud, warm and light. She padded to the round window. With the tip of her finger, she tapped the glass twice, her secret signal to the moon. The moon tipped its face, and a pathway of pale light unfolded from the window to the tops of the sleeping trees, to the meadow, to the hill that leaned against the sky. Marigold stepped onto the moon path. It felt like standing on a song. Slow and soft and safe, she reminded herself, and the quilt agreed, settling around her shoulders with a glow as faint as a firefly's sigh. The first to meet her on the moon path was Thimble, a tiny field mouse who wore a bonnet made from a fallen forget-me-not. Thimble was tugging a string that led to a walnut shell. The shell rocked and squeaked. Inside lay 3 baby mice who were practicing how to be asleep, but hadn't quite learned. "Princess," Thimble whispered, "I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm trying to pull the babies into the moonlight so they'll hush. But the night feels too big, and they feel too small." Marigold knelt, her quilt pooling like a small lake of light. "The night is big," she said gently, "but so is love, and we don't have to pull love anywhere. We can invite it." She looked at the babies, whose whiskers quivered like little tuning forks. "May I share something?" she asked. Thimble nodded, eyes shining. Marigold sang a simple tune, one her grandmother had taught her. It didn't zip or zoom, it didn't climb or somersault. It walked, slowly, kindly, down a small hill and into a cozy valley. The song had just a few words, but they were sturdy words. "Slow and soft and safe we are, cradled close by moon and star. Breathe in night, let worries go, held in hearts that love us so." The baby mice blinked, their ears relaxed, their tiny paws uncurled. One by one, they sank into the walnut shell, like little boats finding calm water. Thimble exhaled with relief she'd been holding under her bonnet. "I tried to rush," she confessed, because I was afraid, but your song, it moves like a feather. Feathers know how to land, said Marigold. They don't hurry, they trust the air. A breeze passed, carrying a secret. It tugged Marigold's quilt, and she felt that thin, trembly thread again. Somewhere, someone else needed the night to be softer. Come, said Thimble, I'll show you a shortcut. But Marigold shook her head with a smile. Let's not hurry. Let's walk the quiet way. Sometimes the slowest path is the one that arrives with the gentlest feet. They walked together until the meadow opened before them like a yawn of grass. Dew caught moonlight and kept it just for a moment before giving it back. There, at the meadow's edge, sat a small dragon, no bigger than a teapot, whose scales shone like the inside of a seashell. The dragon's name was Fennel. Fennel had accidentally learned how to hiccup little puffs of steam when he was nervous. He was nervous now. Plumes rose like shy clouds from his nostrils. I can't sleep, Fennel murmured, wrapping his tail around his toes. I'm worried about tomorrow. I promised to carry a basket of dandelion fluff to the lake for the tadpoles. What if I drop it? What if the fluff flies away? What if I sneeze? What if, said Marigold softly, everything goes right? Fennel blinked. But what if it doesn't? Then we'll try again, said Marigold. Kindness allows try-agains. Fennel watched the dew. I don't want to disappoint anyone. You won't, said Marigold. Do you know why? Fennel shook his head. Because you'll carry the basket as carefully as you can, Marigold said. And if the wind plays a trick, you'll laugh a little and hold it closer. If the fluff flutters, you'll pause and listen. The lake will wait. The tadpoles will wait. The world is patient with patient hearts. Fennel's steam became less puffy, more like tea breath. How do I become patient, though I'm so small and feelings are so big? Try this, said Marigold. She put her hand to her heart again. Listen to the small visitor. Knock, knock, knock. It has a rhythm. If we listen to the rhythm of our hearts, we can match our steps to it. Then feelings begin to walk instead of gallop. Fennel placed his paw to his chest, surprised. It does knock, he whispered. Hello, little visitor. Marigold giggled. She sang the Moonlit Quilt song again, just a little, and Fennel's eyes drooped like sleepy flowers. He yawned, a delicate, steamy yawn, and settled with his head on his tail. Slow and soft and safe, he murmured, and he slept. Thimble tugged lightly at Marigold's quilt. Princess, she whispered, do you feel that? Marigold did. The trembly thread had become a ribbon, fluttering from the direction of the hill that leaned on the sky. Together they climbed the hill, the long way that curved and curved, easy on the legs and friendly to the night. As they went, others joined them, a hedgehog rolling his worries smooth, a moth with moon dust on her wings, a pair of rabbits who liked to count their steps because numbers made tidy pathways in their minds. Every so often, the procession paused, not because they were tired, but because pausing is one of the secrets of going on. At the top of the hill stood a willow tree. Its branches hung like sleepy green curtains, and a soft tinkling came from within, like rain practicing on chimes. Beneath the willow, sitting on a stone as old as a first story, was Grandmother Lark, the wisest person in the valley, with a basket of tiny glass bells and a lap full of thread. Her hair was white and calm. Her hands moved the way ours do when they're happy, unhurried, trustworthy. "Grandmother," said Marigold, smiling sweetly. We heard a tremble. We followed it here. Grandmother Lark nodded and held up a delicate glass bell. "It's the wind," she explained. "He's learning a new lullaby. He knows all the loud songs, all the showy ones that clap through the pines. But he wishes to learn the quiet song, the one that hushes the world into rest." "How can we help?" asked Thimble. "By being the audience he needs," said Grandmother Lark. "By listening with our whole selves. The wind gets excited when someone listens. Then he learns faster." Marigold sat cross-legged on the moss and folded a corner of her moonlit quilt over her knees. The others nestled close. The willow's branches swayed. The wind, feeling the circle of attention, approached shyly. At first, his song was all scattered syllables, an alphabet of breezes. He rushed, he tumbled, he tossed a leaf into the air and chased it without noticing he was the one running. The little glass bells shivered in his wake. "That was very enthusiastic," Marigold said kindly. "Would you like to try again? Imagine each sound is a pebble. Place it in the river and let the river carry it." The wind tried once more. This time his voice was longer, like a ribbon unrolling on the air. The bells sang little silver notes that made even the willow remember old naps. "Better?" said Grandmother Lark, threading a bell onto a branch. "What is the lesson your song wants to teach, wind?" The wind thought. A breeze is another kind of thought, fast and quiet. Then he understood. He sang, "Find the hush inside the breath. Let the day lay down and rest. If you listen, you will hear. All you love is always near." Marigold felt the tremble loosen, like a knot learning to become a bow. She placed a hand over her heart once more. Knock, knock, knock. Everything matched. "Thank you," the wind whispered, modest and proud in the same breath. "I didn't know how to be gentle. I thought I had to be big." "Gentle is big," said Grandmother Lark. "It is the biggest. It carries the whole world to bed." The wind threaded through the willow in a final curtsy and then set about delivering his lullaby to the rooftops and riverbanks, to nests and burrows, to boats moored along the lake, to every place where night was learning to be night. Marigold stood and dusted off her knees. "There's one more tug," she said. It was faint, but she could feel it, the way you can feel a smile in the dark. It came from the far side of the hill, where a little village rested like a basket of rolls under a cloth. "Go, child," Grandmother Lark said softly. "We will keep weaving the bells." Thimble squeezed Marigold's finger. "I'll take the long path home," she said. "I want to practice walking to the rhythm of my heart." "You're already doing it," said Marigold, "and it sounds beautiful." Marigold followed the moon path toward the village. As she neared the cottages, she heard it, the sound of a story that couldn't quite find its ending. The sound came from a window lit by a candle that had learned how to glow without flickering. Inside, a baker and a weaver sat up with their little daughter, Poppy. Poppy's eyes were wide and shiny with extra wakefulness. "We've tried warm milk," the baker was saying, wearing an apron dusted with kindness and flour. "We've tried counting buns. We've tried the quiet game," said the weaver, who had woven every blanket in the village, each one with a special stripe that meant you are loved. But the quiet game feels lonely to Poppy tonight. Poppy was hugging a stuffed fox whose tail had been hugged into a squiggle. "My mind is full of pictures," she explained as Marigold stepped softly into the room. "They won't sit still long enough for me to sleep." "May I visit a while?" asked Marigold, bowing to the baker and the weaver. "I brought the moon with me." She showed them the drape of her quilt, and moonlight pooled gently on the floor. "Please," said Poppy's parents, their shoulders softening as if someone had kissed them there. Marigold knelt beside Poppy's bed. "Tell me about the pictures," she said. Poppy took a breath. "One is a giant cookie running away from the oven on tiny legs. One is a cat who learned to knit. One is a tree that drinks tea. And one is a ladder that goes up and up until it pokes the moon's tummy and makes it giggle." Marigold smiled. "Those are wonderful pictures," she said. "Sometimes minds make more pictures when they know someone is watching. If we watch quietly, without chasing them, they get sleepy. Would you like to try something gentle with me?" Poppy nodded eagerly. "We'll make a quilt for your pictures," said Marigold. "Not a quilt of cloth, but a quilt of places to rest." "How?" Poppy asked, curious and already less bouncy. "First," Marigold said, "we'll give your pictures a bedtime. We'll say, 'Pictures, you were very creative today. Thank you. Now it's time to rest. Tomorrow you can draw new stories." Poppy whispered to the air, a little shy but brave. "Pictures, thank you. Rest now." "Second," said Marigold, "we'll sing the soft song." She hummed, and Poppy hummed too. The tune tiptoed around the room, pat, 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 then found Poppy's ears and curled into them like a little cat. "Third," said Marigold, "we'll breathe with the window. Watch. When the curtain moves in, we breathe in. When it moves out, we breathe out. We let the night do half the work." Poppy watched. The curtain was very good at breathing, so good that Poppy yawned just watching it. "Fourth," Marigold whispered, "we'll tuck the pictures under the moonlit quilt." She pretended to lift a corner of her quilt and float it over Poppy's mind. "Good night, running cookie. Good night, knitting cat. Good night, tea tree. Good night, ladder that tickles the moon." "Good night," Poppy sighed. Her eyes, which had been open like windows, turned into drowsy drawers, half closed and heavy with safe secrets. Marigold sang one last verse. "Slow and soft and safe we are, cradled close by moon and star. Breathe with night, let thoughts grow light, tucked in love and gentle night." By the end of the song, Poppy's mouth made the sweetest shape a mouth can make, the tiny circle of a child who has just drifted past the place where wakefulness holds hands with sleep. The stuffed fox's tail unsquiggled in relief. The baker and weaver mouthed thank you with eyes that glimmered like icing. Marigold set her palm on the door frame as she left, feeling the good weight of the village resting inside the night like a seed in soft earth. The moon path brightened to lead her home. As she walked, the wind's new lullaby brushed her cheeks. Owls tucked their questions away for morning. The lake put on its night sweater and hummed its water hymn. She felt her grandmother's words sewing themselves into her heart. Listening is a lantern. When Marigold reached the castle, the stones remembered her footsteps and glowed a shade warmer. She climbed the stair that curved like a shell. In her room, the harp seemed to say, "Welcome home." Though harps do this so quietly, you must be very sleepy to hear it. She hung the moonlit quilt out the round window for a moment to let it sip the last friendly sip of moonlight. It came back brighter at the edges. Then she spread it across her bed, smooth as good intentions. "Did you find your new patch?" asked the queen softly from the doorway. The king stood beside her, his crown in his hands, because crowns also rest at night. "I did," said Marigold. "It's not sewn on yet, but I can feel it. It's a patch called listening. It looks like a quiet ear and a patient heart, and when you touch it, it plays the wind's lullaby." The queen smiled, and the king's eyes grew shiny in the way that means your love has spilled a little, and you don't mind at all. "What did you learn?" the queen asked. Marigold tucked her hands under her cheek, as if beginning already to practice sleep. I learned that gentle is big, she said. I learned that slow is not the same as late. I learned that if you breathe with the night breathes with you. I learned that even the wind needs someone to listen when he is trying something new. The king nodded, placing his crown on a cushion. These are lessons some people don't learn until they are old and their feet have told 1,000 roads. You learned in one night because you were ready. Marigold yawned, a perfect yawn that made a tiny sound like the soft closing of a book well read. I was not alone, she said. Thimble and Fennel and Grandmother Lark and Poppy helped me, and the moon helped too. The queen pulled the quilt to Marigold's chin and hummed. The king opened the window just a finger's width, so the wind could slip in if he wished. The room received the music and made it softer. "Good night, my lantern," said the queen. "Good night, my gentle star," said the king. "Good night, my listening world," whispered Marigold. The moon rested on the sill like a round guardian. The curtains breathed with the window. The harp held its strings like lines of silver light waiting to become morning's first song. Marigold closed her eyes,